This is going to be showing one of the two top 100 setups. There's the Salome team plus the Birgitta team. In terms of which one's better, I think they're about even. It largely just comes down to what imprints slash artifacts do you have, like Nurseolha imprints, Schniel imprints, Young Senya artifact, Queen's Whistle, or just do you have the gear to set this up? Your Estelle's going to be the same gear for both setups. That part doesn't really matter. It's more so just the other stuff, the stuff that's going to be like marginal differences in your damage, and you can see which one you can do. So this one's going to be going over the Birgitta setup, and I'll be showing an easier way to set it up first than the harder method. This is the score for the easier method. It's like a low 66 million. With the better method, it's like a high 66 million, but it's also harder to set up. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So here is the team that we're going to be using. It's Estelle, Schniel, Cecilia, and Birgitta. For top 100, the only real replacements are going to be Bellion for Cecilia. They do really the same thing. They're like, Bellion's imprint is Ephra's team, unfortunately, so it doesn't actually do anything. I'm just going to be using Cecilia because I like her. So we'll be using Cecilia here. They have the same base speed and everything, so that part doesn't really matter. And then for top 100, otherwise, there's no real replacements besides Cecilia and Bellion. You can check out like the auto setup I have and stuff if you're just looking for a lower score, but this is what we're going to be using. So for Estelle, you're looking mainly to go full damage. We have her in the imprint circuit, of course. You can go up to 400 crit damage. My gear doesn't allow for it, though. You don't really need that much attack. The thing is one, you mainly want the stack HP. There's definitely a certain breakpoint where you're sacrificing too much attack for like very, very minimal HP gains and you start losing damage. I don't know what that breakpoint is. It doesn't really matter that much. Just go HP and crit damage with any spare rolls going into attack. And then we're going to be using Frantic Flight. If you don't have Frantic Flight, some other options. There are a couple of things. One, you can use, I don't know where it is, but Mature Sunglasses is an option. It boosts your crit damage a little bit. Most people aren't going to have this limit broken, so it's not going to be that fantastic, but it is something. And then, especially if you have your Estelle plus 15, you might need to use her personal artifact if you're struggling to survive. So, because her personal artifact will have the damage that she takes from her S2. I put mine in Grace of Growth just so we can see that this works even with her S2 maxed. One more thing for imprint circuit, we had this set up before to max out the attack. You might want to adjust this a little bit and start picking up some HP nodes. Depending on your gear, like for me, my crit damage isn't maxed out right, so I picked up all of the crit damage nodes, but you could consider doing stuff like dropping some of these crit damage nodes. Like if you don't need them, you could drop these two, pick up this one instead, and now you could drop the attack here, and suddenly you can reach this node and get a little bit more HP. So adjust it based on how much crit damage you have, but definitely try and pick up a bit more HP over attack this time. And then let's take a look at the next person. So here is Birgitta. I made her a little bit slower. This is 20 speed on average, because this is 18, 20, 24, 20, and then 20, 20. Yeah, so it's 20 speed average, so this should be a lot more achievable for people. For artifact, we're using Magaraha's Tome. The improved version uses Queen's Whistle, but it's much harder to tune because Magaraha's Tome gives you 30% CR, this gives you 10, so it's a lot tighter with Queen's Whistle. We'll be showing off the Magaraha's Tome version first, and then besides that, it doesn't really matter. Like, you just give her whatever. If you're Estelle struggling to survive, try to minimize her HP and just give her a bunch of defense instead. And then we're using the greater attack buff EE as well. So for Cecilia, I gave her 2 speed for speed tuning purposes, and then generally leave her ungeared. If you have the pieces for it, you can give her some torrent pieces with no HP subs, and this is just to reduce her HP even further, so that your Estelle takes even less damage if you really need it. Her E doesn't matter, and I'm giving her Warhorn. Schniel, pretty much same thing. Ungear him, maybe give him Torrent with no HP subs if you need it. And then I gave him 6 speed for speed tuning purposes. We're using Young Senya Artifact here because it gives HP to Estelle, and then the CR push doesn't really do anything, but you might see slight differences in like Estelle positioning because he'd push her. But the HP boost is the main thing here. So that's it for stats and stuff. Let's take a look at the run.
모든 게 끝났을 때 무슨 관계는 날 기다릴까?
We cleanse off the Venoms and Spade would get injured. There shouldn't be too much issues with Speed RNG, but here's my starting CRs. There was one thing where I do need to push up a little bit to make DDR take a bit more turns before Cecilia moves, otherwise she cuts him, so we're just going to do that. And then you can kind of just auto from here on out. There is one thing you want to watch is his bar. We want him to not go below 65%. So we're going to keep that in mind as well. Occasionally, just hit the ads a little bit, and you should be fine. And then one more thing is, because we have Frantic Flight, I think generally you should push up Estelle just to get the Frantic Flight stacked up a little bit earlier. Very slight damage increase, but it's free, so you might as well take advantage of it.
걱정할 것 없어. 끝나고 부탁할까?
So our Frantic Flight is nice and stacked. We're going to S3 here. This will kill off the ads, and we left him at 65%, because now he's going to drop down to 60%. Schniel's going to do the final hit. So you can test one, and we're in the break phase. And now pretty much all you're going to do is just start spamming your skills. Unfortunately, Birgitta S2 targets randomly, so you do have to actually click Estelle every time, which is kind of annoying. And you can see Magara's Tome pushes her a ton. That makes the tuning in the break phase really, really easy. Because, like, you're barely going to get any movement out of everybody else. So pretty much you sack the 10% attack from Queen's Whistle for much easier tuning overall. And just repeat this. So we're at the final hit. There's a lot of leeway, 30%. Magara's Tome, very nice artifact with no cooldown.
고통은 없을 거야. 효과는 내가 보증하거든. 힘내서 가볼까?
And then from here, we're just going to auto for a bit. So coming up on Schniel's turn here, we are going to use S3 just to reposition him, because right now he's at a kind of awkward spot. This is just going to move him up ahead of Cecilia. So then here, nothing we can really do. Just gonna spam S1. And this is why we gave Cecilia that 2 speed, so she can cut on this turn. 1 speed is probably enough, but I figure I don't have 1 speed gear, and we're not keeping that. So it's just S3. And then now we're just going to start looping.
자욱한 죽음의 연구가 마음에 들게.
Now let's take a look at the slightly harder setup. You can see it's not that much of a damage increase. This is like, what, 600, 700k? So it's the exact same team. Estelle is on the same gear. You still just max out her HP and crit damage with a little bit of attack. The attack is actually somewhat relevant this time. This is just because, like I mentioned, we're using Queen's Whistle. So Frantic Flight already gives you some attack. If you're not using Frantic Flight, you might need to keep an eye on it. But it's not going to be a huge issue just because your other units are largely ungeared. So now Birgitta, I made her really, really fast. 312 speed, this is 23 average. I don't know if you can go any slower. There's one specific turn where I have her cutting somebody, and there's probably some other ways to tune this. But for my setup, I think it might be stuck with this. But this is 23 average, and we have a plus 30 Queen's Whistle, which is probably the more important part. You need a really, really high limit break Queen's Whistle in order to have the setup work properly. And then her imprint doesn't really matter, it's the wrong 2 slots. You know, I just have him ungeared. I did give him some, like, Torrent gear just to lower his HP for fun. And we're still using Young Senya Artifact. If you don't have this, then it's just, like, some attack boosting artifact, like Heart of Small Miracles or Super Duper Water Shooter or something, probably. Yeah, then, again, watch his attack, just in case, for the Queen's Whistle thing, but it shouldn't be a huge issue. And then Cecilia, I just have her completely ungeared, because I do not have Torrent gear without speed left. So we're just leaving her ungeared, and we left Warhorn on her. If you are having trouble with Warhorn, one of the annoying things with Warhorn is the timing of the CR push happens to be such that if you don't let DDR take 1 extra turn in either of the overload phases, when you enter the second break phase, your Warhorn will proc. So that's minus 20% CR for you to work with in the second phase. Very not good. So if you're having trouble tuning around that push, making it so that DDR gets an extra turn, just take off Warhorn. It's not worth the headache. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
자욱한 죽음의 연구가 마음에 들게. 힘내서 가볼까?
Because I lowered my speed a little bit off my top speed, there is 1 point of speed RNG. Here is my Cecilia. You're only just looking at Cecilia, Birgitta here, honestly. But for now, we're just gonna spam some S1s. So Schniel takes his turn here, which is going to push up the Estelle, and then Estelle is going to push up Birgitta. And we really need Birgitta to cut Cecilia here. Okay, so we cut with a 2% gap, and Cecilia started at, what, 35? So I think 36 should be the maximum CR that Cecilia can start with. Good to know. And then we're also going to start hitting the ads here, because we want to leave DDR at 70%. That's why we wanted Birgitta to cut, by the way. It's so that we could have the ads push past Cecilia. We cut off almost all of the Warhorn push there. She only got 2% CR instead of 20.
즐거운 시간이 되어보자고.
환자가 왔군. 영광으로 하려고.
So now Warhorn pushes up. I mentioned that with Warhorn setups, you need DDR to take one extra turn during the overload phase. Either of the overload phases. For my setup, I'm doing it in the second one. Some people might opt to have him do it in the first one instead if that works out easier for you. What am I doing? S3. We left him at 10% because we can do this, and then we can do this. It doesn't matter, like, as long as DDR doesn't cut there, you're fine. If he cuts, he'll silence your Birgitta. And Schniel S1 does cleanse, by the way, so if your timings line up that DDR silences Birgitta and then Schniel S1 cleanses, then that's fine. But mine doesn't, so we needed to make sure that DDR didn't move there. And now we're just going to start spamming. Okay, so that's finally over. Now we're moving into the second phase. We're gonna leave him at 65% this time, so again, we're gonna watch the bar a little bit. And then here, I'm going to push up Cecilia just to adjust her CR position. The Birgitta S2 into Cecilia is pretty crucial for making sure you get that extra overload phase turn that I mentioned for fixing the Warhorn. So I said 65%, he's gonna go over overload right here.
이봐, 말로 하자고. 걱정할 것 없어. 영광으로 하려고.
친절히 상대해줄게.
And then we're just gonna hit him.
진상 손님은 사절이라.
So here is where the Schniel cleanse comes in very nicely. Our Warhorn propped off that DDR turn. If we didn't let DDR take a turn, the ads take their extra turn here, this would have propped the Warhorn. You can see the Warhorn going up. We left them at 65%, there's one hit left. Schniel takes his turn and his S1 cleanses off the silence, so we are good to go.
효과는 내가 보증하거든.